good evening. And thank you, as always, for coming. You know me, Fran Bambaji is how I'm currently called. I work with human design, among other things, on my journey towards completion, to self-love, to self-acceptance. I am learning for myself very strongly at the moment just how important it is to live in love, to come from love, and for love to be the touchstone of all my activities and all my interactions. I believe that human design is very powerful in helping to uncover where we may be stuck, or where we haven't seen ourselves clearly, or where we've got lost in someone else's perception of us. But it's not the only modality that can help. And like so many other paths, it works best when it's incorporated into life itself, not just used as some intellectual knowing. It's a map. It's not the actual journey. We have to live that ourselves, day by day. So let us begin by settling down and placing the cares and anxieties of the day on the back burner or outside the back door, somewhere they can't intrude for a while. Get comfortable wherever you are. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and bring your attention to your breath and to this moment. Take some time to feel into the vessel, to see what's going on. Feel into any sensations that might be there. There's no hurry. Enjoy being in your vessel. Bring a sense of gratitude into this interaction with the form, with the unique and beautiful body that you ride around in. Take a moment to be grateful that you have a body at all, and that you are in a position to take care of it, to have the time to appreciate it, to be able to shelter it, feed it. Imagine that your body is connected to the center of the earth, maybe through sitting on top of a column that reaches down, or through roots, or through a light beam, whatever resonates with you. However you are connected, feel how this connection grounds you. Feel a sense of security and stability as you sit. Can you feel the love and the energy of the earth as it pulses up and into your body, into your heart space, where it mingles with the love that you hold for this planet, our home, and for all the energies that are here. Imagine as you hold that love in your heart space, that you have a beam of light that is leaving your crown and shining up into the sky above your head. This beam of light connects you to all that is outside of the earth. Some cultures call this Father Sky or Father Sun. Feel the heat and the power and the love of this energy as it comes down into your body from above, into your heart space, where it mingles with the love that you hold for the space around our planet. Feel this energy moving into your heart and become aware of how enormous your heart is, how full of love your heart is. Imagine that your heart is the center of the earth and that your body is wrapped around the planet in a glorious embrace. From this position of being the earth, you can love all things without judgment or condition. You can sink into being the perfect expression of love that you always are. And spend a few minutes here, breathing the love of above and below into your heart. Breathing that love out into the world to sustain and hold it in times of darkness and to celebrate with it in times of joy. An endless loop of love, breathing in and out, savoring this moment and this moment. And gently bring your awareness back into your physical body, here and now. Be aware that love still resides in your heart space and you can access it at any time because it is you. It is your essential nature. When you are ready, please open your eyes and join me here, back in this space we share. So usually on a Wednesday, as you know, I speak about the body, how to take care of it. This evening, it's going to be more personal. You know, generally I keep things quite abstract, really, but it doesn't feel like that tonight. And I would like to invite you to join me on this journey. I would like to ask you to stay with me as I unfold or unpack, I guess, some of the processes that are taking place within. Your company, your unique energy, each one of you is much appreciated by this being here, who usually tries to do everything alone and to be very strong and brave. I feel a sense of vulnerability around this evening. Before coming online tonight, I did a meditation that took me so deep. I didn't know who I was when I came back. I'm not entirely sure I've come back completely yet. So there's a sense of vulnerability around what I'm going to express. I'm not entirely sure of it all. I have discovered that I definitely prefer to present a strong persona. You know, I have had to explore the conditioned idea I had that to show vulnerability equates with weakness. As I sat with the title of tonight's session, various sayings and passages came to me, and I would like to share some of them with you. And I hope it will be okay with you that not all of tonight will be in my own words. But sometimes other people are able to express the very emotions that we are unable to verbalize, and they do it beautifully and perfectly. Bear was recently gifted a lovely book called Consolations by David White. And it's a series of short essays on everyday words with a slightly different twist to them. And I found several of them really touched me very deeply. And he writes about vulnerability. He says, vulnerability is not a weakness, a passing indisposition, or something we can arrange to do without. Vulnerability is not a choice. Vulnerability is the underlying, ever-present and abiding undercurrent of our natural state. To run from vulnerability is to run from the essence of our nature. The attempt to be invulnerable is the vain attempt to become something we are not, and most especially, to close off our understanding of the grief of others. More seriously, in refusing our vulnerability, we refuse the help needed at every turn of our existence and immobilize the essential, tidal and conversational foundations of our identity. To have a temporary, isolated sense of power over all events and circumstances is a lovely, illusionary privilege, and perhaps the prime and most beautifully constructed conceit of being human. And especially being youthfully human. But it is a privilege that must be surrendered with that same youth, with ill health, with accident, with the loss of loved ones who do not share our untouchable powers. Powers eventually and most emphatically given up as we approach our last breath. The only choice we have as we mature is how we inhabit our vulnerability, how we become larger and more courageous and more compassionate through our intimacy with disappearance. Our choice is to inhabit vulnerability as generous citizens of loss, robustly and fully, or conversely as misers and complainers, reluctant and fearful, always at the gates of existence, but never bravely and completely attempting to enter, never wanting to risk ourselves, never fully walking through the door. I've been on a series of retreats recently, and now it feels as though quite a lot of things are having to drop away, are having to resettle, realign, I guess you could say, because they are not necessary for this journey now. And it is not always easy to let go, especially of people. However they're going, they are going, they're not gone, but I feel a distance growing, mostly with my family, with some friends. I've heard a few teachers say that if you are not waking up now, if you are not actively doing the work that is necessary to move into love, into non-duality, into that space where we are living out the truth of who we are, if we are not doing that, we will be left behind. We won't ascend or move to the next level or dimension or whatever it is that's going to happen. My mind immediately took hold of this and told me that I hadn't done enough work, that I wasn't far enough along the path to be counted as worthy. And fear, of course, comes with that train of thought. And we know how damaging fear is. So I've stuck with that and have mostly moved through it. Enough, at least, to know that it's the mind and that it's not true. So then my mind started telling me the names of all the people I know who aren't doing the work, who aren't on the path, who are therefore doomed to whatever the alternative is, to whatever it is that those of us who are doing the work are moving towards. More mind games, more stories to look at, to be acknowledged, to be dropped. What an arrogance to think that I know whether my family or my friends are doing the work or not. What nonsense. It's been a tough few days with much soul searching, tears, grieving on some level for something, and it's not entirely clear what. And maybe that is just a story that I'm telling to explain what is mechanical, a chemical process in the body. But there have been offers of help from those who weren't even aware of the ache in my heart, of the overwhelming sense of sadness that I've been carrying in one form or another for way too long. And I'm not great at asking for help or even accepting it when it's offered. I am getting better though. And I know the importance of this lesson. So when I received 3 offers in the space of as many days, I figured, okay, there's a message here, and the only appropriate response has been, yes, thank you. We are animals. Well, at least our bodies are. You know, this vehicle, this vessel, whatever you want to call it, this host for our spirit, this temple. And whilst it is an animal, it doesn't follow that it is a beast. It is just doing what it does. It's working hard to maintain an organism that will survive in its environment, that will remain viable no matter what gets thrown at it. It has very basic needs, namely nourishment, warmth, and shelter. And we could survive with just those 3 basic things. We might not thrive, but we could survive. Millions do. I have come to the conclusion in my meditations that it is the mind that is the beast. It is the mind that drives us crazy with its thoughts and judgments and its opinions and its constant narrative. It is the mind that tells us we're not good enough, young enough, smart enough, thin enough, worthy enough. Are you able to put your hand on your heart and say that you love yourself completely without any kind of condition, holding nothing back? I cannot, not consistently. I have dips in my emotions when I don't feel at all lovable by myself or by anybody else. And in those times, I know for a fact that anyone who does love me is really stupid, because I know what I'm really like and they don't. And they don't know what I've done in my life. And I tell myself they wouldn't love me if they really knew me. And this used to provoke a storm of loathing. And I'm very grateful to be able to say used to, because it wasn't much fun being in that place. These days, the dips don't last so long, and most of the time I stay aware within them. I know that it's a process that is playing out. Something is being released that needs to be released, and there is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with having emotions. They are part of who I am. at least right now. I remind myself that I am not broken. I do not need fixing. I am a glorious being. I was not allowed to be emotional when I was growing up. I was told I was too sensitive when I reacted to some verbal sibling teasing, which was often quite actually cruel at times. I was labelled a sulker when I was just sad or lonely or down, but didn't know how to express myself. And for sure, I wasn't allowed to be angry. I was accepted as long as I held myself in some kind of emotional limbo. And I learned very young that this was the safest place to be, even though I couldn't always maintain it. And for a long time, I lived a life of quiet desperation. I'd like to share with you a poem by a man named Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. When I look at some of the stories mind tells me, I wonder at the conditioning that I must have been exposed to in my life. The conditioning that led me to believe that I had no value and was therefore valid prey for those who wanted to take advantage or abuse or drag down this being who was at that time young and often quite frightened with no one to turn to. Despair is another word that David Whyte wrote an essay about. It is a bit long, but it's so beautiful. And it resonated with me very strongly when I first heard it. Bear read it to me when I was not in a good place this last few days. And still now I'm reading it myself. It's very lovely. So I invite you to close your eyes and to allow the words to gently break over you. Despair takes us in when we have nowhere else to go. When we feel the heart cannot break anymore. When our world or our loved ones disappear. When we feel we cannot be loved or do not deserve to be loved. When our God disappoints or when our body is carrying profound pain in a way that does not seem to go away. Despair is a haven with its own temporary form of strange beauty and self-compassion. It is the invitation we accept when we want to remove ourselves from hurt. Despair is the last protection. To disappear through despair is to seek a temporary but necessary illusion, a place where we hope nothing can ever find us in the same way again. Despair is a necessary and seasonal state of repair, a temporary healing absence, an internal, physiological and psychological winter, when our previous forms of participation in the world take a rest. It is a loss of horizon. It is the place we go when we do not want to be found in the same way anymore. We give up hope when certain particular wishes are no longer able to come true, and despair is the time in which we both endure and heal, even when we have not yet found the new form of hope. Despair is, surprisingly, the last bastion of hope, the wish being that if we cannot be found in the old way, we cannot ever be touched or hurt in that same way again. Despair is the sweet but illusionary abstraction of leaving the body while still inhabiting it, so we can stop the body from feeling anymore. Despair is the place we go when we no longer want to make a home in the world, and where we feel with a beautifully cruel form of satisfaction that we may never have deserved that home in the first place. Despair, strangely, has its own sense of achievement, and despair, even more strangely, needs despair to keep it alive. Despair turns to depression and abstraction when we try to make it stay beyond its appointed season and start to shape our identity around its frozen disappointments. But despair can only stay beyond its appointed time through the forced artificiality of created distance, by abstracting ourselves from bodily feelings, by trapping ourselves in the disappointed mind, convincing ourselves the seasons have stopped and can never turn again. And perhaps most simply and importantly, by refusing to let the body breathe by itself fully and deeply. Despair is kept alive by freezing our sense of time and the rhythms of time. When we no longer feel imprisoned and when the season is allowed to turn, despair cannot survive. To keep despair alive, we have to abstract and immobilize our bodies, our faculties of hearing, touch, and smell, and keep the surrounding springtime of the world at a distance. Despair needs a certain tending, reinforcing, and isolation, but the body left to itself will breathe. The ears will hear the first birdsong of morning, or catch the leaves being touched by the wind in the trees, and the wind will blow away even the greyest cloud, will move even the most immovable season. The heart will continue to beat, and the world, we realize, will never stop or go away. The antidote to despair is not to be found in the brave attempt to cheer ourselves up with happy abstracts, but in paying a profound and courageous attention to the body and the breath, independent of our imprisoning thoughts and stories, and even surprisingly in paying attention to despair itself and the way we hold on to it, and which we realize was never ours to own and to hold in the first place. To see and experience despair fully in our body is to begin to see it as a necessary seasonal visitation, and the first step in letting it have its own life, neither holding it nor moving it on before its time. We take the first steps out of despair by taking on its full weight and coming fully to ground in our wish not to be here. We let our bodies and we let our world breathe again. In that breathing, despair cannot do anything but change into something else, into some other season, as it was meant to do from the beginning. Despair is a difficult, beautiful, necessary, a binding understanding between human beings caught in a fierce and difficult world where half of our experience is mediated by loss. But it is a season, a waveform passing through the body, not a prison surrounding us. A season left to itself would always move, however, slowly, under its own patience, power, and volition. Refusing to despair about despair itself, we can let despair have its own natural life and take a first step onto the foundational ground of human compassion. The ability to see and understand and touch and even speak the heartfelt grief of another. It is only recently that I truly came to understand that those who shine brightly are, in some way, a threat to those who cannot or will not see the light. And so they seek to extinguish it. And as I am before you here tonight, you know that they did not succeed, although it was close at times, I will admit. But I did learn to hide my light, as I'm sure many of you have had to do. I know I'm not alone in my experience. What an offense against nature, to have to hide the light that we are in order to avoid the pain of that light being seen. But something else that I have learned is that, try as I might to be invisible, I was always seen. One way or another, I was called out, and from time to time, I was allowed to shine without punishment. And I am always and eternally grateful that Bear saw me. And God knows I tried to deflect him. And not only does he see me and let me know that I am allowed to shine, but he encourages nothing else. Only shining my light will do, only standing tall and being seen, only accepting my vulnerability and allowing it, allowing myself to allow it. After many years of hiding, this is truly a gift that I treasure, and I offer it to all of you. I see you, all of you, in your beauty. Even as the beast rages, I see you. Hiding is a way of staying alive. Hiding is a way of holding ourselves until we are ready to come into the light. Hiding is one of the brilliant and virtuoso practices of almost every part of the natural world. The protective quiet of an icy northern landscape, the held bud of a future summer rose, the snowbound internal pulse of the hibernating bear. Hiding is underestimated. We are hidden by life in our mother's womb until we grow and ready ourselves for our first appearance in the lighted world. To appear too early in that world is to find ourselves with the immediate necessity for outside intensive care. Hiding done properly is the internal faithful promise for a proper future emergence as embryos, as children, or even as emerging adults in retreat from the names that have caught us and imprisoned us, often in ways where we have been too easily seen and too easily named. We live in a time of the dissected soul, the immediate disclosure, our thoughts, imaginings and longings exposed to the light too much, too early, and too often. our best qualities squeezed too soon into a world already awash with ideas that oppress our sense of self and our sense of others. What is real is almost always, to begin with, hidden, and does not want to be understood by the part of the mind that mistakenly thinks it knows what is happening. What is precious inside us does not care to be known by the mind in ways that diminish its presence. Hiding is an act of freedom from the misunderstanding of others, especially in the enclosing world of oppressive secret governments and private entities attempting to name us, to anticipate us, to leave us with no place to hide, and to grow in ways unmanaged by a creeping necessity for absolute naming, absolute tracking, and absolute control. Hiding is a bid for independence from others, from mistaken ideas we have about ourselves, from an oppressive and mistaken wish to keep us completely safe, completely ministered to, and therefore completely managed. Hiding is creative, necessary, and beautifully subversive of outside interference and control. Hiding leaves life to itself, to become more of itself. Hiding is the radical independence necessary for our emergence into the light of a proper human future. More words from David Whyte. He does write so beautifully. It sometimes seems that there is so much fear around us. In order to escape it, we have to distance ourselves from many things that used to be an ordinary part of life, many people that used to be part of our lives. And sometimes we cannot completely escape it. At times, the collective energy is of fear, and we cannot get away from that. And our bodies will feel it, even if we don't acknowledge it consciously. It's still there, our cells, our atoms, the waters of our physical form. Humanity is at times like a frightened animal. It's frightened of itself, it's frightened by everything. Its world is held together by fear and yet torn apart by fear. And yet it is possible to pause for a moment, to take a breath, to smell the flowers. And in that moment, we are free. When the beast is raging, what to do? I would like to say, do nothing. Let the beast run its course. Allow it. Acknowledge it. Because we know that to be in resistance to anything sets up all kinds of issues in the vessel. But sitting with the raging beast can be deeply uncomfortable. Does it help to know that it's not real? Not always, actually. We can have an intellectual understanding that the mind is an illusion and is telling us stories. But I could quite cheerfully savage anyone who tells me that when I'm down on my wave and feeling the despair. Gradually, with practice, it can become possible to not do anything, to just be with whatever is coming, whether that is joy or despair, to be with it and to just witness it. We talked about detachment a couple of weeks ago, and this is what I meant, really, that witnessing awareness that is detached from whatever is happening, accepting and allowing the raging beast, along with the singing of the angels, because it's all the same. When you get into that space of witnessing, it's all the same. It truly is. And not only is it all the same, but none of it really matters. Not when you're in that space. And there can be a huge freedom in that realization, a huge peace that can be felt throughout the whole body. What becomes apparent is that the beast brings gifts in its slathering jaws. It brings the ability to detach and to be at peace. Because what is the alternative, really? You know, we descend into discomfort, we stay with the pain, we hide our magnificent selves from the world that really needs us to shine. How do we describe beauty? Is there one box called beauty that all descriptions adhere to? Or is it a matter for our own discernment? My last offering from David Whyte is on the word beauty. Beauty is the harvest of presence, the evanescent moment of seeing or hearing on the outside what already lives far inside us. The eyes, the ears, or the imagination suddenly become a bridge between the here and the there, between then and now, between the inside and the outside. Beauty is the conversation between what we think is happening outside in the world and what is just about to occur far inside us. Beauty is an achieved state of both deep attention and self-forgetting. The self-forgetting of seeing, hearing, smelling, or touching that erases our separation, our distance, our fear of the other. Beauty invites us through entrancement to that fearful frontier between what we think makes us and what we think makes the world. Beauty is almost always found in symmetries and intriguing asymmetries. The symmetries and asymmetries seen out in creation, the wings of the moth, the airy sky and the solid earth, the restful, focused eyes of a loving face in which we see our own self reflected. The symmetry also, therefore, of bringing together inner and outer recognitions, the far horizon of otherness seen in that face joined to the deep inner horizon of our own being. Beauty is an inner and an outer complexion living in one face. Beauty especially occurs in the meeting of time with the timeless, the passing moment framed by what has happened and what is about to occur. The scattering of the first spring apple blossom, the turning, spiraling flight of a curled leaf in the falling light, the smoothing of white, sun-filled sheets by careful hands, setting them to air on the line. The broad expanse of cotton filled by the breeze only for a moment, the sheets sailing on into dryness, billowing toward a future that is always beckoning, always just beyond us. Beauty is the harvest of presence. Richard Rudd tells us that beauty is the highest expression of the first gene key, the siddhi, and it works hand in hand with the second siddhi of unity. Beauty lies in the unity of all. True beauty, when manifested and realized in a human being, presupposes a state of union with the totality. This union, this oneness, is not like anything we can imagine. Its beauty lies in the fact that it is so simply natural that it cannot be expressed. Every time it has been expressed, it has been misunderstood. The only way to understand true beauty is to die into it. The moment we humans look at something or feel something and proclaim it beautiful, we have divided from it and left the state of unity. True beauty is emptiness. There is no one to comprehend it and nothing to feel it. It's a bit like the Tao in that it is not true beauty if it can be spoken of, copied or shared. It is unique and inexplicable. Beauty, true beauty, is the expression of unity in human form. We all have many moments in our day where we experience true beauty, joy, peace and stillness. But because these moments have absolutely nothing to do with our mind, for the most part they go unnoticed. The experience of beauty, joy, peace and stillness happens in presence, in this here now moment. And so as soon as mind chimes in with its observation of, oh, isn't this beautiful? We're out of that witnessing presence, generally. It is possible, again with practice, to witness the mind's narration. But often the mind coming in is the point of us getting pulled back into the illusion of passing time, of the never-ending comparisons of the mind telling us, well, it's a nice sunset, but it's not as nice as the one we saw in Cornwall last year. We are all here for a reason, all of us, without exception. We may need to set aside some judgments that we have around the fact that all of us are here, with good reason. Accept that this drama we are living in has to play out this way, simply because this is the way it's playing out. And every single being is here now for some reason. There is some role that only we can play. We are all necessary. We are all important. We are all perfect. We are all beautiful. And we are all expressions of the divine source, part of the divine plan. We each have this gift, this wisdom. We have it and we share it with others, encouraging them to own up to their own gifts, to their own wisdom. And what is of greater value in life than to give another person the gift of their own truth, their own wisdom? Everything that has ever happened has led to this moment. Everything that ever was is held in this moment. And the potential for all that is to come is right here now in this moment. Honoring this moment, being aware of this moment is so important. I suppose where I have come to in this last week or so is that I'm on a journey. I am a work in progress. Life doesn't end until we die, and it's only the physical form that dies anyway, and it's been on its way to that end since the day we were born. We're all on a journey. You know, we can be swept along without any awareness, plodding heavily from one moment to the next, bemoaning our lot, hating everything and being fearful. Or we can enjoy the ride. We can acknowledge that we are up and we're down and we're everything in between. We are lost, we're found. We go this way, we go that way. We think this, we think that. But one of the most important things that we can do each day is to look in the mirror and to love what we see there. Because in that moment, it is where we are. And this is not airy fairy kind of new age woo-woo idea. It's serious training. You know, to be able to look the beast in the eye and say, I love you. I love me. To be able to do what the Kogi Indians do and tell the beast, you are my beloved. I open my heart to you. This is serious training. This is warrior training. This is not for the faint-hearted. And at first we may snarl the words out, defiantly declaring our love for ourselves. And maybe we will move into sobbing every time we pour the oil of love onto the tempestuous waters of the snarling beast. And then one day we surprise ourselves by being able to look ourselves squarely in the eyes and by declaring in a voice that is strong and firm, I am love. The beast can be tamed. The beast can be fed peace and love. It might not digest it well to begin with, and it will probably take some work. But we don't have to let that puppy rule us. We are not at the mercy of our mind, though we may have allowed that to be the way we've lived. We are not at the mercy of our mind. Remember, the mind is the service of the heart, and the heart is love. When you close your eyes to sleep tonight, remember how it felt to hold the love of the earth and the heavens in your heart. It is possible to find the beauty in the beast, to see that we are both the beauty and the beast. I leave you tonight with one more reading. It is a poem by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. And as I read it to you, please, again, I invite you to close your eyes. Allow the words to whisper into your being. And when it is finished, we can just sit quietly together for a few minutes. God and I in space alone, and nobody else in view. And where are the people, O Lord? I said. The earth below, and the sky o'erhead, and the dead whom I once knew. That was a dream, God smiled and said, a dream that seemed to be true. There were no people, living or dead. There was no earth and no sky or head. There was only myself in you. Why do I feel no fear? I asked, meeting you here this way. For I have sinned, I know full well. And is there heaven? And is there hell? And is this the judgment day? Nay, those were but dreams, the great God said, dreams that have ceased to be. There are no such things as fear or sin. There is no you. You have never been. There is nothing at all but me. Wista Alnyada. Uya. Winestiana A. Winesta Ashtara Alyana. Wista Anya A. Anya. Wista A. Na Asta Ayawana. Wushta. Wushtanayalana. Wushtananalaya. There are no such things as fear or sin. There is no you. You have never been. There is nothing at all but me. Thank you for shining your own light in this world, and in doing so, encouraging others to do the same. Maybe some who wouldn't otherwise know that it was okay to do so. Next time you meditate, I invite you to go back to your own childhood, find your young self, and give yourself a hug. And give yourself full permission to stand tall and shine no matter what. Because God knows it's the only permission that you need. And I thank each and every one of you for your presence here tonight, for your loving energy and support. Thank you for listening to me, for allowing my vulnerability to show itself, because it definitely makes me stronger to be able to do so. Look into your heart now, your big, beautiful, wild, and untamed heart, and know without a doubt that you are already home.